the Australians, then Jenna Ward, still reluctant. Maybe their boat's just longer than everyone else's. Oh, it's the overstern. That's a very good point.
Michelle Ray and Margaret Hogan the
all
last.
the way
and
cleanly this time.
That's far more like it.
Blue boat in the middle, Belcher and Mason. White boats on the right, the two Hungarians. Brooks and Peters in the white boat in the centre. They're fastest away as we thought they might be. And Spain this side, which is Alvarez and Arquero. But it's Hungary, Great Britain, Belgium.
Super start for Belgium. And a terrible start for the South Africans. Oh, I lied. That's the Australian crew of Montana Murray.
So there's a bit of a coming together. Che at the front and Kisley. A little bit of change of direction. I think it was Kaziskova who tapped the back of Kisley's boat there. But Brooks and Peters showing their form. They won the B final at the Sprint Worlds, 500 metres just a couple of weeks ago. And they are a very, very well-drilled crew. It's just whether they can cope with the rough and tumble of a marathon. They were impressive last year. So there you go. It's Belgium, Great Britain, Spain to the left. That Spanish crew is going to be Barrios and Figueras. Then Kisley and the white boat, second out from the leaders. Che for now tucked in the back as she was in the K1 race yesterday. And as state normal for Kaziskova, she's just trying to catch up the front group again, which I'm sure she will do. And it's going to be a big, big group around the top turn.
Those boats coming in from the right, it's not a tactic. They have to go around a bridge pillar as they go under Campsdrift Drive. So they all went right of that big bridge pillar. That's why they're all converging in on the front. But that's all been done safely.
Organised, no stress for anyone there, really. Except perhaps the Italians, the Americans.
Belcher and
Mason. They've been practicing a lot. I know they've got personal bests and records back home. Kisley Mihalic taking the lead there.
Getting a nice slingshot coming out of the corner, Mihalic and Kisley. Going past Belcher and Mason.
Brooks and Peters to the left of Belcher and Mason, looking comfortable. There's Che. And in the black boat, I think, is Barrios and Figueras, but we need a number check on them. But it looks like 4 boats away at the moment, and Renata Che is nowhere near, and she's not even looking comfortable in the chase group at the minute. Guess who's going to be left to close the gap there? It's the blue shirts of Kaziskova and Hrachova from the Czech Republic. Australia, 6-3-5.
Yeah, not good news for Montana Murray and Bria Rodley.
I think these girls had a bit of a story coming into it. I'm pretty sure it's this crew. There was there were problems in their selection race with something happened at the portage where they got trapped, their boat under a cable or something.
Yeah,
and they didn't quite make the cut-off time, and there was a big appeal. And I'm really glad to see them here because it's, you know, if you can get here, get here. And
yeah, I remember the story. There was rope on the jetty. And as they came into one of the portages, the nose of their boat got snarled up in that, and that basically blew them out of the selection race. They immediately contacted the organisers and said, I see you using jetties, please tell us that there's no rope anywhere. Right. But that was clearly designed to fuel their appeal process, which has worked because they're here.
And I think a lot of people got behind them in that campaign. I think a lot of people felt for them. And Che and Barrett in the white boat at the back of that group really struggling. And I think that was Ward and Russell as well, tracking them. But here comes Che in the white boat round the outside. It's just unfamiliar territory. It was exactly the same in the K1 for her yesterday. And, yeah, I think she's just off colour. Che immediately round to the back of the blue boat of Great Britain, which means that that's the one that's leading. And there's first blood to the Great Britain crew, Belcher and Mason. And it's only the Danes, really, that are comfortable. Even the Belgians are struggling now off the back of that, and I think it's the South Africans.
Bringing up the rear, what that little burn has done is it's stretched that
No, it's not, it's the Spaniards, sorry. It's Figueras and Barrios are the black boat in that front 6. Belcher around the turn really well. It's Che who's suffering. She's trying to stay in the V. It's going to work out okay for her. So it's Great Britain, Denmark, Hungary, Spain, Belgium, then the South Africans, Czechs, 2 South African boats there still, and the one to the left looks like a horrendous lean. You can see both paddlers' chests from the front, and that is hideous. We've all been there.
It's agonizing.
And anyone who's racing a K2 knows that feeling. And to generate enough relaxation to solve that problem when you're under pressure. And Ward and Russell, they stopped paddling for a bit there. I'm not sure what happened.
It's almost as if they think it's portage time.
So,
curious split of 2 boats off the back of that bunch.
Out to the right, is that going to be Kaziskova again?
It could well be. She did that throughout her K1 race.
She did it all day yesterday.
She's clearly sussed out a channel there that she thinks is quicker.
It is Kaziskova, and she's been covered by Ward. I think Ward ran for that.
Well, it's an interesting line, really, and we saw her use it time after time yesterday, and it's definitely longer. But I don't know if it's the mental thing of being close to the bank and being able to go faster, or there's deeper water there. But she's used it lap after lap yesterday, and here she is using that channel again today.
And they've pulled away from Ward and Russell. It's bad news for the South Africans. You can see that Kaziskova is rolling down those big waves out to the right. So she can make contact with the group, possibly. Belcher and Mason, very relaxed at the front. Dane's doing well also.
Belcher seems to have a very similar race plan from yesterday so far, asserting her dominance from early on. And she's proved she's strong enough to follow through with it. So, yeah, great to see her and Mason up front there again doing exactly what Belcher did yesterday.
So Kaziskova's closed the gap. And there's the Spaniards. That's the second Spanish crew. Alvarez and Arquero, they're on their own at the moment. The leaders come through. Kisley takes on the lead from Great Britain. But nothing dramatic. That group will stay together, but they're on their own. Jenna Ward and Nicole Russell. The race Jenna Ward had last year was a phenomenal race. I mean, it was something special, and it's not going to be the same for her this year. If she gets back to that group, it's going to be an awfully hard trawl.
It's also a very new combination, with the greatest of respect to the 2 very talented girls who are in that boat. The Jenna Ward and Kayeda purchase thing was no longer an option. So she did look really hard. And they're good mates. They paddle out of surf ski together, but they really haven't done the hours in that K2 together. And they're still settling in it, to be honest. I mean, they're still dealing with basics like setup and lean. And
what I'm struggling to believe is that Arthur and Byrne, the other South African crew, have made it back there with the lean they've got. I mean, that is such hard work, and it's really heavy duty doing that. So, and Stott's just corrected our obvious mistake there. It was actually Arthur and Byrne with Kaziskova, and they both fell off the front group together when Che took the lead.
As Ward and Russell will be joining the second group, the chasing group.
A little bit of stress around the top turn for the Belgians there on the inside, and for the Danes at the back of the group. As Che takes it on. Tracked comfortably, it seems, by Belcher and Mason. This is going to be interesting to see. Belcher yesterday, dominant force on the portage, and if that's the same again today, you can see this race panning out in a very similar way to yesterday's race. Away go Che and Barra. They really need to be covered if they make a move, because they are very happy to do the work out the front. South Africans struggling at the back of this group. But Belcher, here we go again. It's so similar to yesterday's race. Belcher and Mason are putting it into Che and Barra here.
4 boats together.
And this is great news. Danish, great decision to go in early there. It's waiting time for Kisley. She's in trouble. The Danes were the best on that by far. And they're away clear. They're going to work hard. The Hungarians in all sorts of trouble. Che has turned Kisley into the bank. Neither of them get away from the side. They're in all sorts of trouble. It's not what Che needs, that's for sure. So it's Peters and Brooks with Kisley. they're the chase pair, but it's Denmark and Great Britain away. And Che looks to be struggling, to be fair. She's using the South Africans to close the gap. And I think, I don't know, it's so early, but Che just doesn't look the full ticket today.
Oh, and we've got another boat being emptied at the top.
That's Lane and Broughton. Terrible news for them. I don't know if we'll get to see what happened there, but probably not, because the cameras are on the portage. So look at Che dangling off the back of the South African crew there.
It was just clumsy on the portage, wasn't it?
Oh, it's horrible. Horrible to watch. It wasn't the professional outfit we've seen for so many years. Australians away in the second group with the Spaniards. Norwegians just pulling away from the side now. As the Americans get in, that's the second yellow boat. That's Ray and Hogan. And behind them, Jenna Ward and Russell.
And not just because they're on the front bunch, but Rosenkilde and Hansen are looking so ominous at the moment.
They were the best organised. I mean, Belcher and Mason, they were first in. That was safe, they weren't in any rush. But in the melee behind, the Danes read it so well, ducked in early, got themselves out of trouble, and were actually first to leave. They're still leading now, look. So Kisley back in touch, no problems at all for her. Belcher and Mason, no problems for them. Sad. Probably ending for these two, because it's not a crew that's comfortable enough, I don't think, to want to trawl around on their own at the back. But for me, it's early doors, but it's going to be very hard to beat the Great British crew here. So the Danes doing really well. Great Britain, I think, will be lapping this up. Che in trouble going around the turn. It's just so unusual to see her so badly organised. So there's a big gap opened up, and that was all Che's doing.
Yep.
She couldn't get around the turn. So Kisley has to do the closing after that, because I just don't think Che's got the engine to do it this year. And off the back of that group, I think it's the Spaniards really paying the price for that move. Straight into the portage. It's Che first, Belcher second. At the back of the group was the Danes. Now Kisley out of the boat. So 1, 2, 3 is Hungary, Great Britain. The Danes in the gap is going to open up. The Spanish and the South Africans are in real danger here. The Belgians and Spaniards are gone. They're not going to make contact with this group again. And Belcher again, just as she did yesterday.
This is superb.
She is the dominant force this weekend. They'll run right to the end. Hungarians a bit better organised this time.
And it's the Danes who've again
Danes are in trouble.
badly.
Not so clever this time from the Danes. They're still struggling to get their boat into the water. Belcher away, Kisley away, Che away. And this is brutal for all the other crews, because I don't think this gap will close now. Kisley is working hard. Mihalic in the back, already world champion in the under-23s, is piling on. And this is now a 3-boat race.
Well, the Danes have got a lot of work to do. The South Africans have hopped on their wave to try and capitalise on it, but a clumsy decision from the Danes that they put in. There was plenty of room. They just chose to go where the traffic was, and it was asking for trouble. After
the genius of their first portage, it's sad to see that, because if they'd done a good one there, they could have been away, but no one's closing this gap. It never happens that a gap is closed on 2 Hungarians in the K2. And now you've got your medals sitting right here, and it's just going to be a cat and mouse game now. The pace will be applied for probably a whole long lap, and then the race begins. You can see how hard Belcher and Mason are having to work to stick with Kisley. Danes have come wide, but I think they're a day late and $1 short. And you can see the tail of the lead group. They're close now. So maybe we were wrong.
Yeah, they've certainly got a sniff of being able to bridge back onto that front bunch. Haley Arthur and Mish Burner up for the fight today. It's pretty impressive.
Still a significant gap. Again, Che and Barra.
And bumping tails there. It's all clumsy.
Fiddling with stuff, whatever stuff they're fiddling with. And the South Africans are going to get back. And I don't think we've ever seen that before, where the Hungarians have had the opportunity to run and they failed to do so. So there goes Che now. The V could easily open up for the South Africans, which would be great news for them and terrible news for the Danes.
Yeah, and that's what they sense.
South Africans came to the left of the white boat of Kisley, expecting Kisley to move up to the right, but they haven't done so.
I don't think Kisley's going to move up. She's going to stay there, keep the pressure on the South Africans, and the Danes are going to have to work hard at the back. It's probably not a wise move, really, to move up, but Kisley, I'm sure, we've watched her sit at the back of the bunch yesterday many, many times, really comfortable and still finishing strong. So she's not going to do any favours for the South Africans, and she's going to sit there and make sure that diamond opportunity for the South Africans doesn't open up.
Let's hope this one goes a bit better for Belcher and Mason. Be easier if they were positioned slightly further forward. Again, a little bit of contact to the back of the group.
So the Brits and the Hungarians are coming up either side of the South African boat.
Belcher will want to go on to Che now. So Belcher had to cover that because otherwise she would have been squeezed out by the Danes. And that would have put her in a bad position for the turn. Che also had to cover it. And then once the two of them were out ahead of the South Africans, it was Belcher's choice to drop back onto Che. She knows she's got the legs on the portage and they can rest again. And a lot goes on in those little moments.
Yeah, and for Che, it's trying to assume as much control over that approach to the portage and the portage itself.
It's actually a very good move by the Danes there. They had to go for it, and if Belcher had ended up with the pull there, they would have had the first wave. Yep. The South Africans would have been in the diamond momentarily, and then squeezed by the next Hungarian boat and out the back. So it was a good effort for them, and unfortunately it didn't work out. But Hungarians in the lead, so that's the way it's panned out.
I think it's definitely the Danish crew look the weakest of the four at the moment. They're always picking up the pieces.
So the front five. How long is this going to stay five, given that we've got two portages to go?
Who's going to be motivated to break it down? The Brits aren't going to be motivated to break it down. South Africans, I don't think, have the speed to break it down. So it's only if the Hungarians decide that they need a very fast last long lap. And I think that's the only thing they can do to damage the Brits as well. So if they don't do it, it's because they can't do it, would be my take on it. So all round safely, Danes just straggling a little bit there. The Hungarians will come in short here.
And the Danes are going to get squeezed.
Danes a little bit, but no, there's going to be plenty of room for everyone now. In fact, the way it's gone, it hasn't fallen for the South Africans, who are going to run out of room at the far end of the portage. And they're going to have to run straight up the slope, a little bit steeper than it is if you run diagonally, obviously. So South Africans made the right move, but the Hungarians changed their process, and it disadvantaged South Africans, but no damage done.
And they've come screaming past the Danes as well. Running
Belcher
it really well.
And Mason looking very, very comfortable. No strain on either face.
And that lays down a marker. Remember, there's only one more portage to come. Belcher and Mason at the front. They're away first. They're away clean. Are they going to try and make this one stick? Kisley's right on her wave. Shy's with her. The South Africans, this group is going to reform as it is. Kisley at the front there must look to try and destabilize the setup at the moment. She's doing the work, taking everybody up to the top turn. She's got the guts. There's some speed in that boat. We saw that earlier on. She's got to start making that count as a weapon in that arsenal.
I think Kisley's only hope is to come out of the final portage first. And I think she'd be very, very hard to overtake. That's a well-drilled crew. But it's tough at the back there.
And Shy's getting caught up with the South African boat.
And this is going to be hard for Che. Che is going to have to work. And when she works, there's nowhere for her to go because it's Great Britain she's going to have to take on. And I think if Belcher wants to hold her off, she can. And if I was Belcher, I would do that now. Yeah, your automatic response is to fall into the V and disadvantage the South Africans. But Belcher has an opportunity here to put a few hard yards into Che.
This is going to be a very interesting battle here as Che decides what to do. I don't think she's going to hang on that second wave for very long. She has to challenge Belcher, and Belcher's probably going to try and hold off. So this could be quite a race just for this first wash in the next few meters.
It's got to happen soon. In fact, it's happening now. So whether she leads or whether she goes for the wash is significant. Leading would be her best option, but Kisley says absolutely not. That is not going to happen.
And that's bad news for the South African girls. They've been squeezed right out.
Nervous look for me. at Hayley Mason in the back of the blue boat there. I'm just trying to work out how tired she is, but it looks good for the blue boat. It really looks good to me. I'm starting to get nervous already, but this looks as good as it did yesterday from a British point of view. Kisley knows she can't overtake Belcher once Belcher gets the lead, and she's taking it from here. Now, all eyes for me on the Danes and how well they get around this turn, because that's going to affect the Great Britain crew, and the Danes are doing a good job.
Giving Che something of a nudge.
Che's in
They're
trouble
taking
here.
Che down in the
Che
process.
is in big trouble here.
The Danes.
It's great for the South Africans.
Slingshot inside for the South African crew. Suddenly they're right back in the mix.
But really, that to me is taking it to Kisley and Belcher. There's only 2 boats now in this race.
So we turn the page, start the final chapter of what has been an absorbing women's K2 race.
50 metres to go, and the tension is building.
Kisley and Mihalic, to me, still holding all the cards.
I just feel for the South Africans. This has gone horrible for them in the last 3 or 4 minutes. Like we thought, Kisley going fairly long. I hope the Danes don't impede the Brits. Boats are out. It's Kisley first, throwing her drink system off. But when they get on the flat, it's going to be Belcher running past, I think. Although Kisley is making a great job of this.
No gains being made by that blue boat.
Oh, my word, this isn't how we expected it to pan out.
Kisley Mihalic holding the
Belcher
cards.
struggling. This has changed the nature of this totally. I didn't think that Kisley would have those legs, but she has. And Belcher Mason now having to tough out.
And the
British exact opposite situation that they had yesterday. And absolutely now Kisley and Mihalic are taking this, and it's all gone.
And it's the Danes in third.
It's all gone belly up. The Danes are in third, and they could well finish third. What looked like a certain gold to me for the Brits has gone. Kisley and Mihalic so strong. They've got the lead, and they're pulling away, and they are never coming back.
That's 1,000 metres at the front for them before they go and take that gold.
No problem at all.
Brilliantly run by the Hungarians.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. You didn't have that penciled in for that last portage.
I wonder if they've been hiding that. That was just 20% better than anything else they've done all day.
We're actually stupid for not noticing. Kisley raced exactly like that yesterday. She didn't show her cards until very late in the race, and then threw it down in a counter, and she's done exactly the same thing today. She's been there and thereabouts and being strong, but yeah, she's showing her dominance.
But this is where, I mean, they did this from I think the second portage, where they strung the group out a bit, and the group was struggling, and the nature of this race has just changed completely. Maybe heart overhead, I saw too much strength in the blue boat from Great Britain, but now, yeah, it's game on. Yeah, we're fighting for medals now.
Well, again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier about Kisley and Mihalic, and it's mostly Kisley, I suspect, in that boat who's been doing the management of this race. The execution of the game plan has been superb. She's just kept that hidden card at the bottom of the deck, hauled it out at the right time, played it, and it's suddenly hammered out that 40-50 meter lead that they're enjoying at the moment. So it's a canter up. There's the turn cans on the short turn in front of them. They'll go around those 5 boys. They're going flat out at the moment, as they would do, but when they come around those boys, they'll have the luxury of seeing, and there's a resignation there. There's no real effort to try and catch them.
There's fatigue there, not just resignation. There's genuine fatigue. I'd virtually got my tracksuit top on for the presentation here, and I was up for it all over again. But fantastic from Kisley, absolutely fantastic. You can see how sharp that turn is. The K2s just can't get around it.
And it's the danger, the surprise boat here. They appeared to be struggling early on, but they actually came out of that portage strong, and they're still.
Belcher done well to go inside them, and it's going to be Che. Che is going to be miles ahead, absolutely streets ahead, and the Brits have just lost their medal, because the Danes are going to get onto the side of Che, and it's going to be no medal for the Brits here. They look like they had it under control for so long, and it's a nightmare for Belcher and Mason. It really is. They're going to have to work so hard. Che's picked a medal from nothing.
Well, the Brits are coming back. The Brits are coming back on the inside, trying to get onto the right of
something. They've got to pick something out of this. But you would not have had the result or the picture coming down the last 500 metre looking like this at all. Belcher's coming wide on Che now. there's still a chance of a medal for Great Britain, but gold to Hungary.
Vanda Kisley, Sarah Mihalic cantering away. Pulled the trigger at the right time, played their card on the portage. It gave them the gap at the put-in, and they have just bulleted away from the rest of the pack. It's going to be a spectacular gold for Hungary, but there are 3 boats sitting together, and that's silver and bronze.
This is gold, and an emphatic gold at that. Beautifully planned by the Hungarians. Kisley obviously had control of the group.
Well, Vanda Kisley, the heir apparent in Hungarian women's canoeing, has just stepped up a notch.
This is tough. The way to deal with this, I think, is to sit back on the wash, wait for the first attack, and go second.
But the crowd here at Camps Drift rises
in the background,
as one.
Belcher and Mason are taking on Che, but they haven't got it. It's Che all the way to the finish, but Kisley wins.
Kisley Mihalic are going to win by 40 or 50 meters. Here's the race for silver.
Vanda Kisley, what a weekend for her. It's going to be Che takes the silver. I'm really happy for her that she's come out of this with a medal. And Belcher Mason third. Great result for them. They would have taken that before the race. I really hope they could have come up with another goal, but it wasn't to be today. Kisley was too strong, and the Danes in 4th place. Huge cheer for the South Africans. They've done a great job, Arthur and Byrne, out there today. And it could have been different for them. The last little run into the final portage just didn't play to them, and it was by no means their fault.
They're not unhappy with that. They barked with the big dogs today. They would have learned chunks from that, and I think it's been an absolutely top outing for the South African pair.
Fatigue, exhaustion there from the Great Britain crew. They'll be happy with the medal. Absolutely they will. There's the 3 medalists. But they did nothing wrong all day. They just ran out of juice on the last little bit. They didn't have what it took on the last portage to overhaul the Hungarians, and a great job from all 3 crews.
And look at Renata Che there. She's happy. She's in a good place at the moment.